Hello YouTube, welcome to my new series, Pick Your Playstyle. In this series, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to choose a legend and then build a number of decks for that legend. Usually it'll probably be around 3 decks, but maybe sometimes 4 or 5, depending on how quickly I can get through them. And I'm starting with Zed, because Zed is obviously my favorite character in League of Legends, and someone that I've been very excited to play in Vendetta. So we're going to make Zed video number 1. The idea behind this series is that I want to build a number of decks across like a wide spectrum of playstyles, so that you can kind of go in and pick the one that speaks to you the most. Disclaimer, not all of these decks are going to be extremely highly competitive. I'm going to try to do my best to give at least one budget deck per video, one competitive deck per video, and then something super fun, something interesting that no one else I'm seeing is really trying. With Zed, I have a couple of ideas of different decks that we can build, and I have some of those ideas on my second monitor, but I'm going to be building this in front of you and kind of just talking about the cards that I'm putting into the decks and my thought process for why they're going in there. And we've got some spicy stuff, so stay tuned. Our first list is going to be a more budget list. So I'm going to start each of these videos off with something that's a little bit cheaper so that people can kind of build a deck more easily. And it's going to be something that I'm going to try to make it more interesting and not just like the standard, like what everyone else is doing. So this first list is going to be budget, and it's going to be Hidden Zed. So we're going to start off here and get our Zed legend in, throw the over number in there, and the alt art, because why not? You know, the Chai card, right? This is the card I revealed. It's super cool to see this and see people playing with it. It's just such a cool thing for me. But okay, so we're going to start off with putting in Zed without a sound. I think this is like a no-brainer, like default. You put this in as your default chosen champion, and then sometimes if you're going first, you put in the red one. So that's kind of how I've been building a lot of Zed decks. Okay, so we've got these two. So for Hidden Zed, we need 2 drops. So with 2 drops, we first need Evelyn. I'm going to put in 2 Evelyns. Let's throw in Tide Turner and Windsinger. Why can't I? Oh, I spelled it wrong. There we go. Okay, I have 2 of each. The reason for this is pretty simple. This is actually not all of our 2 drops. We're going to have 3 Treasure Hunter. Treasure Hunter is one of my favorite 2 drops in Zed lists because Zed tends to be very power hungry. A lot of decks and a lot of legends have something unfair that they're doing. Draven is just drawing cards for free. Aurelia is readying things, which is really powerful and only doing it for 1 power. What else is it? Master Yi is getting +2 just for free, right? All the time. Your legend as Zed is like a traveling merchant ability on a card, right? Which is good, but it's also very situational because you have to banish all the time. And so you're not actually getting to proc it very much. So because Zed is a more fair deck, it's very power hungry. Like for you to do unfair things, you have to play power cards, and you need like a lot of power for that. And because this is a hidden list, we have a lot of power costs to pay to hide things. And so Treasure Hunter is just extremely valuable. Generating gold is really, really good. So 3 Treasure Hunter, 2 Tide Turner, 2 Evelyn, 2 Windsinger. I'm going to keep filling out this deck, and then we'll talk about the choices that I'm making. So we're going to put in 1 Black Market Broker. No one knows this card exists, and it's probably played in literally 0 decks right now, but I think it's really interesting, and it kind of works with what this deck is trying to do. Another card that generates gold is Pike. So Pike is a backline unit and has hidden, and so another unit that you can play from hidden that will generate gold for you, and is actually kind of sticky because of the backline keyword. So 2 Pikes. Pretty much in any hidden list that revolves around purple, we need Ember Monk. So we're going to have 3 Ember Monks, and I'm actually going to jam in 3 Kha'Zix as well. Kha'Zix being able to be played from ambush is really valuable for a list like this where you're really trying to hold. And holding up 4 for a Kha'Zix, basically the play line of moving a unit in on turn 1 or turn 2, I guess, moving your 2-drop in, hiding a card, is really good. And then if you're going second, you can move a 2-drop in, you can hide a card, and then you can still have enough to play Kha'Zix. And I think it's just pretty insane. Like, there's not many decks that can get over like a turn 2 Kha'Zix if you move your 2-drop in. And so yeah, that's why we have Kha'Zix in the deck. Just a really powerful unit for this hold style of deck. And then our final unit is Katarina. And this is weird, I know. Again, I'm not saying this deck is like crazy strong or crazy powerful. I know that everyone says these cards are underpowered. But in a list like this where you're trying to be playing hidden cards basically every turn, and you're also hiding cards every turn, Katarina's ability is actually pretty good. Because if you're trying to hide a card every turn and readying her and moving her back to base, moving her up into new battlefields, it's essentially like a ganking mechanism, right? Because if you have her on the battlefield and she readies, you can have another unit there, you can move her back, hide another card, ready her, move her in. You can play a card on your opponent's turn to deal an extra 2 damage. Like, it's actually a pretty interesting ability. And so this this play style is, I think, fitting for a hidden Zed list. Okay, so that's our units. Let's go into spells. We're going to put in 1 Cleave. Because I think Cleave is a really good spell for just getting over a battlefield. If your opponent just kind of posts up on a battlefield and then kind of taps out, it's very easy to get over and just like establish on a battlefield. And that's what the deck struggles with, because most hidden lists and most like hold decks struggle with just establishing, right? And also reestablishing. And Cleave lets you reestablish if you fall behind. Another one that's really weird is Angle Shot. And we'll get to this in a second. I guess I'll put this in now. 2 Battle Axes and 1 Edge of Night. Edge of Night being a hidden gear, right? And then Battle Axe being another one of these cards, kind of like Cleave, where it helps you catch up later on in the game. And it's really good with Up from the Deep, because your tentacles are all of a sudden 5 might units. So we have 3 Up from the Deeps. I think Up from the Deep is one of the best cards in Zed, full stop. I think every Zed list should be playing 3 Up from the Deep, just because of the flow synergy that it comes with, and because of how powerful it is to spawn 2 units and then also be able to flow it again from trash. It's just an insanely powerful card for how much it costs, and especially with Zed, where you can banish it, I think it's just immensely valuable. So you should have 3 Up from the Deep in basically every Zed list you're playing. I pretty much stand by that. But I think there might be a list here that I build today that doesn't have 3, but we'll see. Okay, so 3 Up for the Deep. These synergize really well with the Blighted Battle Axes, and then Edge of Night because of it's just a hidden gear and it's a +2 from hidden, which can catch people off guard. And Angle Shot is in here to switch up. It's actually a really effective tool for attaching weapons. Attaching your Blighted Battle Axe to tentacles, moving in, and then like switching it over to another tentacle and attacking the other battlefield. Like, it's a really good comeback mechanic. And then your unit that's sitting on that battlefield, if you don't have Angle Shot, is now +4 stronger, which is really good for hold style decks as well. So I really like Angle Shot, and I really like the interactions that this has. I did test this deck, and it actually performed pretty well. Granted, I'm playing against like a lot of rogue stuff on the simulators and not like the top tier decks all the time, but it caught people off guard a lot of the time. And I think Angle Shot is really effective, not only for yourself, but it's also really good for if you're in a Reliant matchup or a Draven matchup, you can detach their weapons and at reaction speed, which is insanely powerful. Reaction weapon detachment is really good for getting rid of a GA, for getting rid of a Speeding Axe. And then it also draws you a card, which is crazy. So you need card draw, and it's a really good card draw card for what this deck wants to do. 2 Switcheroo. I've typed it in the wrong box. Switcheroo, of course, really effective, especially with all the 1-drops that you're playing and your tentacles. You usually want to be hiding this. Playing it from hand is like extremely expensive, and it kind of deramps you a little bit too much for what this deck wants to do. But in an emergency, moving a tentacle in and switcherooing an Elder Dragon is, I think, fully acceptable for that matchup. So Switcheroo, really good. We have 2 Perfect Execution. Perfect Execution is another one of these comeback mechanics. Again, it's a whole deck, and sometimes you're going to fall behind. And Perfect Execution is a card that allows you to reestablish on a battlefield if they knock you off. This card also really good being played from flow, so you get some Zed synergy with it and it lets you cycle more. So yeah, we like Perfect Execution. Starcrossed. Everyone hates this card, and I think if everyone hates a card, it's probably good to play it, right? Everyone is talking about how broken this card is, and there are so many things in this game that, quote-unquote, lose to Starcrossed, right? And this deck, not only, Starcrossed is expensive to play, but this deck plays hiddens, and so a lot of the time you're perfectly fine with returning your hidden card to your hand and then re-hiding it on the same turn, right? So you can like reveal a Tide Turner, switch the locations of something, and then Starcrossed and return that Tide Turner to your hand, then replay it again and switch locations again, right? You can do the same thing with Windsinger. You can return something to their hand that's 3 might or less, then you can Starcrossed their big unit and your Windsinger, and then play your Windsinger out again, and then return something else that's 3 might or less to their hand. So especially for those decks that establish a lot of like small guys like Rek'Sai or Ivern or Vex sometimes on a single battlefield, the Windsinger Starcrossed loops are really effective. And then just returning your other hidden cards to your hand can be really good as well, even to Kha'Zix sometimes. So we run 3 Starcrossed in this deck. 4 cards left. What am I missing? Oh yeah, Sudden Storm. Sudden Storm is actually a pretty good spell. Dealing 4 to an attacking unit for 3 energy is like perfectly acceptable in my book. And then also, just sometimes you need to deal 2 at a battlefield just to clear something or to kill their 2-drop. Like, that's fine. And then having it hidden as well, like hiding a card and then having that hidden card deal 4 damage is pretty crazy. I think it's kind of like Void Seeker, but it doesn't have the 3 energy attached to it. It would just be the 1 for the power cost. It's pretty good. I like it. So Sudden Storm, and then we have 1 more card. Oh yeah, 2 more cards. Bone Skewer, Hand Knowledge, Hand Rip, and then it also stuns, so sometimes you kill stuff with this. And it's also optional. So if you reveal their hand and they have like 3 elders, you don't have to rip the unit from their hand. You can just like be like, all right, cool, I see your hand. But sometimes you get really lucky on this, and this card actually just wins you games because you find their like key unit in their hand and you just kill it outright, and then they can't do anything. So I really like Bone Skewer, only as a 1-of though, because I found it was kind of clunky if I had more than 1. And then the last card we have in this deck is Fresh Beans, okay? And now you sit back and you look at this deck and you think, it's so weird. There's so many cards in this deck that no one plays and everyone thinks is bad, and they kind of are, but in this kind of package, I think they kind of work together. And so this is just a fun thing to kind of bring to your Nexus night. It's an extremely cheap deck. There are no Kaisas, there are no Seals, no Rosses. Ross is probably cheap, but like there are no like none of those big like red, purple, like expensive cards in this deck. It'd be really cheap to assemble, and I think you can have a lot of fun with this play style. So Hidden Zed, we're gonna go ahead and put our battlefields in here. We of course are running Vandal Tree, just because it's a hidden deck. This is our blind battlefield. You can also, there's an argument to be made for making Vandal Tree your going first battlefield, just because you can go onto a battlefield and then hide 2 cards. I just don't like to really deramp on turn 2, so it's not that important to me to be playing this blind. We've got Star Spring, and we've got Grove. If you're playing Vandal Tree as your going first battlefield, you don't want to be playing Grove, because Grove should be your going first battlefield if you are playing it. So I would pick something else to do. You could do Treasure Hoard, honestly, like making a gold. And then you could also do like Emperor's Dais to kind of return your hidden cards to your hand, like Conquer and then return them. That way, like whatever 2-drop you play, if it's a hidden, you can actually bring it back to your hand and get a gold for it, and then hide it next turn with that gold. So I think Emperor's Dais would be a good replacement for Grove. And then Star Spring is good because the Kha'Zix synergy, right? So you move your 2-drop up, and then when they try to push in, you Kha'Zix down. Now you have a 6-might unit, and then you can move your 2-drop back and save it from their unit. So there's really good stuff that you can do with Star Spring, especially with your hidden units as well. Like, for example, if you have an Ember Monk and they push in with something that's massive, you can reveal your Tide Turner and then save your Ember Monk, and then they can't kill your key unit. So Star Spring is really good. Could be played going first or second. I think here it's going second because I have Grove as my going first battlefield. For the sideboard, I just kind of threw stuff in here. It's kind of random, and you can kind of just do whatever is fitting to your local meta. I have 2 Ravenbloom Prefects, 1 extra Windsinger, because I think that card is really good in certain matchups. If you're not playing as purple, you put in 3 Ferris Forerunner. I think that's like pretty standard for a lot of Zed lists. Like Ferris Forerunner is such a crazy card if you're not against purple and they have Starcrossed and Rebukes. So I have 3 of those in the sideboard. Another Angle Shot for the Draven Aurelia matchups and anything with gear. Fiora even maybe. Ride the Wind. Ride the Wind is really good for taking back point tempo. So if you fall behind, it's another one of those comeback cards. So Ride the Wind in here. And then another copy of Fresh Beans. I don't know when you'd put another copy of Fresh Beans in, but this is kind of an experimental sideboard, so you guys can just play it and see what you like about it. And if there are any situations where you do want to put a second one in. So that's the deck list. Feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, our next deck is called Kennen at Home, or as I've been calling it, Switchboard Zed. So this is a deck that I've been having a lot of success on, surprisingly, because it's doing things that are just worse than what Kennen wants to do, but it's still doing them, and I kind of like it. So this is a more competitive deck, I would say. I've been having pretty good success with it, and it's more interesting than a lot of the standard Zed lists that other people have been playing. So Switchboard Zed. Let's go ahead and put our champion and legend here, and then grab our 2-drops, running 1 Gust Monk, 2 Traveling Merchant, and then 3 Traveling Merchant, and then 3 Treasure Hunter. Why can't I spell? There we go. So only 7 2-drops. The argument could be made to put in another Gust Monk. I think that's totally fair. And you'd have to replace something else in the list. But I think I'm comfortable with having 7 2-drops for this. And the reason for it is because we actually run an interesting package here. So it's Kennen at Home, right? This is a Switchboard deck that On game 1, you're playing a Nocturne package. So we throw in 3 Nocturnes and 2 Scryers. And your game 1 battlefield is going to be Candlelit. Candle. There we go. Okay, so with this package, you actually get a lot of options. Oh, and of course, stack deck, right? You have stack deck in the deck. You have stack deck in every purple deck. So with this package, with 3 stack deck, 2 Scryers, and Candlelit, I found that I was actually pretty consistently able to see Nocturnes off the top and play them. And playing a Nocturne for 1 purple energy, or sorry, 1 purple power is one of the craziest things you can do in a purple deck. I think the win rate for a red-purple deck just skyrockets if you are able to play even a single Nocturne, let alone 2. So it's really fun. It's kind of high rolly, right? Sometimes you miss it. Sometimes you like mulligan away 2 cards and you draw 2 Nocturnes and you're like, well, okay, so my game plan is kind of not happening this game. But when you hit it, it feels really fun and it feels really good. So we're running this package, and because of the Scryer's Blooms, you have other things to play turn 1. So sometimes I will stack deck, like see a Nocturne and see a Scryers, play the Nocturne for a power, and then play the Scryers. And yes, you deramped, but you got a Scryers Bloom down, you got a 4 might unit on the board, and you're kind of just like off to the races, right? So there are a lot of really interesting lines with this deck, and having 2 Scryers kind of is insurance against missing your 2-drop. So that's why I run it in. Other insurance that we have is Gust. I have 2 Gust in this list because Gust is just insane for stealing back tempo from your opponent, especially if they're going first. You play your 2-drop, hold up 1 for Gust, they push in, you Gust their Diana, you Gust their whatever 2-drop they have, their Lonely Poro, and no one ever wants to defy Gust, so they just let it happen. And you essentially traded 1 energy for a point, which is crazy. I think Gust is extremely effective in decks that can afford to fit it in, and we can afford to fit it in. So we play 2 Gust. Other units, we have Fizz. We have 2 copies of Fizz and 3 copies of Rasa. Fizz needs no introduction. Just replaying things like Star-Crossed, Ride the Wind, replaying even a stack deck is extremely good. With Fizz, sometimes I'll Fizz a stack deck back and find a Nocturne that way, and it just lets you filter through your deck more and more. So it's really good in a list like this. I think 3 is way too many. 2 is just the right amount. Sometimes you accidentally burn it, and then you're sad because you can't play it unless you find it off of Shovel later. So I think 2 is a perfect number. And then 3 Rasa because we're playing a Miracle list, and we want to be able to play Rasas for free. This deck does burn, and it burns with Deathmark. But we're only running 2 Deathmark. Deathmark is, I was running this at 3, and then I kind of realized that when you play Deathmark, a lot of the times you play it from flow, you've burnt 6, you've already played a lot of cards, and so you get your trash to this point of 10 cards for Rasas pretty quickly, and you don't want to be burning that much more than that in my eyes, because once you're able to play your free Rasas, like that's kind of the break point that you want to reach for your trash size. After that, you're kind of just burning like good cards that you wanted to play, right? You're burning Seals, you're burning Last Rites. Sometimes you like burn a Ride the Wind that you really needed, but you don't want to be playing it off of Fizz. So I think Deathmark at 2 is just fine. And so that's how we're going to be burning in this list. With all this purple that we see, we're going to be playing Seals. So we have 3 Seals, of course, because it's a Miracle list. You need to get these out to play your Rasas for free, to play your Nocturnes for free. It's just an insanely good seal. It's probably the best seal of all 6. And especially with Fizz in the deck, like you want to be able to get back some of these power costs. So 3 Seals is a no-brainer. Let's talk about our spells here. Up from the Deep, as I've said, is extremely good in every Zed list. So we run 3. We have 2 Last Rites. This Last Rites loop of being able to recur Rasas from your trash is insanely powerful. And then also recycling. I mean, the cost to recycle cards is fine because you just recycle units that you don't need or spells that you don't think you need. And then replaying a Rasa, replaying a Fizz from trash to give it Ride the Wind or Perfect Execution, or even just like replaying a Fizz to gust something. There's so many lines that you can do with Last Rites, and it's a really good utility card and late game card for a deck that has a big trash. So we play 2. We have 2 Ride the Wind. Ride the Wind, insanely good for something, especially for a deck like this, especially if you can have a Last Rites on a unit that rides the wind, because then you can play 2 units from your trash, and that's pretty crazy. Ride the Wind also able to steal points. It's able to generate Treasure Hunter gold. Something that I love to do just across the board is if I play Treasure Hunter turn 1, I'd love to see a Ride the Wind in my hand for my second turn, because moving Treasure Hunter up and then Ride the Wind to the other battlefield and then moving back, you essentially get back the power, the gold that you paid for the Ride the Wind, and you generated 2 more. And it kind of just gives you 2 points. It gives you 2 points also, right? So you score 2 points, you make 3 gold, you save your treasure hunter for next turn so you can generate another gold, and now your power costs are set. You can use that gold on your next turn to play a seal. You can use that gold on your next turn if you stack deck and find a Rasa, right? It's just insanely good to generate that much gold early on and score 2 points. So now you're in even point tempo. So Ride the Wind Treasure Hunter is like one of my favorite openings to get in any Zed deck. So we have 2 Ride the Wind, 1 Perfect Execution. I think 2 is reasonable, but I've found that I really just needed 1 most of the time. Sometimes in green matchups, I wanted more than 1 because what they would do is they would defy it. It would go to trash, and then I would play it from trash, and they would defy it. Or I would burn it and then need to play it later on from trash, and they just defy the 1 that I have left, right? So having 2 instances of Perfect Execution is good, but having 4 against green is much better because then they probably can't defy the key moments where you need to play this card. So I could see putting in another one for green matchups. We run 2 Star-Crossed. We have 2 Fizz as well, so being able to recur Star-Crossed obviously is one of the best loops that you can do in this game right now. And then Star-Crossed has really good synergy with our Tentacles too, and even our Shadow Clones. Bouncing a 0 might or a 1 might in exchange for their Rengar or something crazy like that is very valuable, so we do that. The last 2 spells we have are 1 Abandon and 1 Bushwhack. Bushwhack is for those late game like burst turns where you just need to double conquer. When you're on 6, you need to get to 8, and so you Bushwhack, and then if they can't defy it, you just everything you played comes out ready, and it's very hard for people to deal with. That could be Nocturnes, that could be Rasas, that could be things that you play from your trash with Last Rites. So we like to have 1 Bushwhack in the list. Sometimes I even Bushwhack with a Fizz in order to get that last explosive turn. So that's something you can do. And then I have 1 Abandon. This could be Hard Bargain, and I do have Hard Bargain in the sideboard, but with the Switchboard style, having 1 more instance of Predict is really good, and I like having Abandon. Sometimes you just get the nuts, like you stack deck, find a Nocturne, and then on their turn, they try to cast a spell, you Abandon, find another Nocturne, and it just feels so much fun when that happens. So it feels really good. So yeah, we have 1 Abandon in the main. It wouldn't be a Switchboard deck if we didn't have a really strong sideboard. So in our sideboard, we have Ravenborn Prefect, Ravenborn? Ravenbloom. Ravenbloom Prefect. We've got Ferris Forerunner. And actually, we only have 2 prefects. 3 Ferris, 1 Brittle. Can't spell brittle. There we go. 1 Falling Star. We have 1 Invert Timelines, 1 Downwell. There we go. And 1 Hard Bargain. So in some matchups, I will add in the Hard Bargain as an additional counterspell and take out the Bushwhack. Some of the first things that come out of this list. So let's talk about the Switchboard playstyle, right? Master Yi players were doing this in set 1. Basically, game 1, this is your list. It's great. You have Candle Lit, so you can dig for Nocturnes. Game 2, you sub out all 3 Nocturnes and the Scryers, and then maybe the Abandon. Like you just take that Nocturne package out and put in from the sideboard whatever is good for that matchup. A lot of the times it'll be Ferris Forerunner, because if it's a non-purple matchup, adding in 3 Ferrises for 3 Nocturnes is a no-brainer. That's fantastic. If you're against blue, you put in Falling Star, because Falling Star is really good against their like Hueys. It's really good against Aurelia because you can kill their Stellacorns and Lonely Poros in base. So you put in the Falling Star for some of those matchups. Invert Timeline's really good for the blue decks that draw tons of cards like Control Ezreal. It's also really good against Raven because you just let them draw cards and then you invert and just make them discard them all. So invert is really good in a lot of matchups. I have the gear destruction I have is Ravenbloom Prefect and Brittle Steel. I like Brittle Steel, but it's really expensive to play from flow, and I don't really like how much it costs. 4 and a power is a lot to just kill a gear. So I'm using 1 for now. The argument could be made to switch these Ravenblooms out for Thermo Beam because I think it has more wide applicability. Ravenbloom's pretty good against Aurora, but like a lot of the time you just get it off the top of your deck late game and they already have their gear on board. So like it doesn't do anything. So this is probably the first thing I would cut from the sideboard. And then Hard Bargain as another counter spell, which is good in a lot of spell heavy matchups. And then Downwell. I love Downwell. In some cases I would consider like putting in 2 Downwells just because this card destroys a lot of decks. This just wrecks Azir. It wrecks Ornn. Any deck that goes wide, it can completely blow out matchups like Rek'Sai as well if you can survive long enough to get it out. There's just any kind of swarm deck, any kind of token-based deck like Victor that has a lot of recruits out there. This just destroys them. It's kind of nuts. it's a complete board wipe for Azir. So like if you're against an Azir and you find your downwell, you just win the game, and you just win the next game if you find downwell. It's crazy. Downwell is also really good because we're running 3 seals, right? So you can have 3 seals on board on your Rasas or whatever. Conquer 2, get to 6 points, and then you downwell. You tap all 3 seals, get 3 power. You downwell, so now you have 1 purple power in your pool. You use that purple power to play a seal, seal, right? And then you use whatever purple power you have left to play out all your Rasas or whatever you have. So whatever Rasas you had on the board, you can just play them out, right? And then essentially you kind of like wipe the board clean and then set up for the next turn. And it's really hard for most decks to deal with that, especially if you're at 6 points, you probably just win the game. So I love that loop, and so that's why we're running Downwell in the side for certain matchups. Our last 2 battlefields are Zon Warrens. Doesn't need any introduction, and Seat of Power. Seat of Power we love because you get to draw, and this deck does double conquer very frequently. So we run Seat of Power as a battlefield, and then Zon is just a very safe, like filtering battlefield for any miracle matchup. It just helps you get your trash filled up more. So that's why I run Zon Warrens. These are interchangeable. Like you could do this going first or second. I'd probably play Seat of Power going first, because then you get the opportunity to double conquer more often. But it's also good going second because you can up from the deep on your first turn, and then you can double conquer with those tentacles. So perfectly reasonable to have Seat of Power going second as well. And that is our Kennen at Home Switchboard deck. I think this deck is actually relatively competitive. It's a different take on Miracle, and a lot of people aren't really looking at Nocturnes and Zed because they think it's kind of hard to hit, which it sort of is. But I think like with this right package around it, and with the game plan of just like taking out that whole package for games 2 and 3, and then putting in good cards for those games in whatever matchup you're in, I think it's strong enough, and I think it's viable. But let me know what you guys think and whether or not you have any success with this deck. But this is the list that we talked about before, Kennen at Home. And I wanted to quickly mention that the reason why this list actually is more competitive than it seems is because of Nocturne, and specifically Nocturne's errata. So Nocturne says this on his card, right? When you look at cards at the top of your deck and see me, you may play me for 1 power. That is no longer his actual text because Nocturne received an errata. If we're going to go to Piltover Archive, I think they have the actual updated text. Why is Nocturne not showing up? Hello? Oh, main deck. Nocturne... Where are you? Okay. Nocturne. His new text with the errata reads, as you look at or reveal me from the top of your deck, you may banish me. If you do, you may play me for 1 power. Nocturne banishes himself, guys. So if you're playing Nocturnes, that is a legend trigger. You can banish Nocturne, play Nocturne, empower your legend, tap your legend, discard, draw. And that's insane, right? In this deck, you do have some banish. You've got Perfect Execution, you've got 3 up from the deeps, and you've got a single Gust Monk. But the real tricky and surprise thing for people is when you're banishing your Nocturnes. So just remember that if you find a Nocturne and play it, you can actually empower your legend off of that trigger. And it's another way to filter through your deck. So that's another reason why I really wanted to build this like Nocturne Zed deck. It's just another way to empower legend. And as Zed, we're kind of limited with things that empower our legend, right? Not a lot of stuff banishes in these colors. Like here's a list of all of the banish cards, and they're all kind of sucky, right? And if you're going to like the viable ones, most of them have flow, and it's really just up from the deep and Perfect Execution that are like playable, I think. Kennen, like you could potentially put Kennen into a list, but I haven't found a way to make Kennen actually work in Zed. It's just a little bit too slow for my liking. And then these other ones are just kind of unplayable, right? I guess your clones are obviously banishing too, right? But you know, you're looking for as many opportunities to banish as you can when you play Zed, and Nocturne is one of those opportunities that not many people remember or know about, even especially if you're new to the game and weren't around for the Nocturne errata. There's no way that you would know that this exists, but it exists, guys. Nocturne banishes and is a legend proc, so keep that in mind. Let us go to our next one. Our third deck, and I'll probably just do this and one more. Actually, I don't have time. I have another Zed idea, but this video has already gone long enough. So I'm just going to do one more deck, and then maybe I'll talk about my my Draven or my Draven at Home list another time. It's basically just like the best of Draven from Ottawa, but in Zed, so it's just strictly worse than Draven. And then you add in a couple of other things that are better for Zed, right? But that's kind of what the list is. But anyway, this list that I'm going to do is Red Zed. Red Zed. I'm going to call it Red Zed 1 because I already have a Red Zed. Okay, Red Zed is an idea that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I've been really wanting to play a control Zed deck. And I've been experimenting with a lot of different builds for Control Z, and I've kind of settled on this one. Control Z is mono red. So our rune count, let me get our Z in here. We are running Z, of course, Z champion, Z legend. We are running 12 red runes. There are no purple power costs in this deck at all. And I understand the weakness of that because, you know, when you're running a mono-colored deck, your opponent knows what not to play around, right? Because they're like, oh, well, he has 0 purple. You know, they see that you have 12 red runes in game 1, and so they know you're not playing Falling Star. They know they don't have to worry about Rebuke. There's all this purple stuff that they can just, like, remove from their brain and not play around, right? That's the weakness of it. The strength of it is that you always have the red that you need to play your power costs. You could make an argument that you just put in 2 purple to throw people off, and they're like, well, maybe he has a purple card, right? But I think going full 12 is fine. This deck does it generate gold? It does not generate gold directly, but I have treasure hunters in the sideboard. So sometimes with gold, you can sneak out something purple if you like wanted to play it. So your opponent might think about that. But anyway, this is a mono red Control Z deck. Our units, we have 0 2-drops. I know that's like an abomination. Like that's a terrible statement to hear in any Riftbound video because everyone is like, you need to play 2-drops. We have no 2-drops in this list. We have a couple of 3-drops though. We're playing 2 Akali and Bewitching Spirits. This deck is trying to kind of do what Ezreal does with Bewitching Spirit, where you have this loop and you just kind of make them discard all their cards, and then you just play your own game and they're top decking for the rest of the game. You love to find that in this deck, and there is some draw power, like stack decks especially, that allow you to get there. We're running the Pack and Trove combo, so you can kind of ramp up and find your cards that way as well. And we're also running 2 Detonate. So let me go ahead and put these in here. We've got 2 Detonate, 2 Trove, 3 Pack in the main. And this is what we're kind of trying to do. We're trying to loop Bewitching Spirit a bunch of times, make them discard cards. We're trying to detonate our Trove or pack our Trove in order to channel and draw. I think it's fine to detonate a Trove early, and then, you know, if you find a pack, you're only using it on your units. I think that's totally acceptable. And you'll see that some of these other units that we have are fine to be returned to hand. But I say some. There's only 4 other units in the deck. And I know it's crazy. People are going to be like, what? You're playing like 10 units? Yes. We're playing 2 Morganas and 2 Annies. Yeah, and at this point, people are clicking off the video because they're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's crazy. This is insane. Why are we playing this? I'll explain it after I go through the rest of the list so you can kind of see the vision. All right? 2 Hextech Array, 3 Stack Deck Always, 3 Consuming Curse, 3 Up from the Deep Always in Z, 1 Perfect Execution, 3 Falling Star, of course, in a mono red you have to. What am I missing? Seals. We're running 3 red seals. And what else has not been done yet? Oh, yeah. We actually have 3 more units. We have 1 Ravenborn Tome, 1 Void Seeker, and our last card for this deck is none other than Twisted Fate himself. Twisted Fate, finally playable. Maybe. I don't know. I think that now with the cards that we've had in the last couple of sets, there actually is a world where Twisted Fate could start to be played in these purple-red decks, and also in the purple-yellow. Like if you wanted to play mono-yellow Kennen, you could probably throw Twisted Fate in there. The stun is probably the best effect here, but with Twisted Fate in a mono-red, you're guaranteed to get this effect every single time. And dealing 2 to an enemy unit there and 1 to all other enemy units is pretty nuts, especially in matchups like Rek'Sai. But even in like just a regular matchup on your Void Seeker or your what's it called, Void Gate game, right? That's 3 to a unit and 2 to everything else. Pretty insane. If you've got Annie out on the board, it's even more. And then you've also got spells to kind of add on to that damage. So Twisted Fate's effect, not terrible in a mono red purple, in a red purple deck that's mono red. So we have 3 Twisted Fate in the main. Our other battlefields are Heisho, because we don't like paying deflect. And this is actually an insane battlefield for a deck like this. And I'll get into that in a second. And then I'm running the Academy. You could make this something else. I'm not really sure what this third battlefield is going to be yet. But I like the Academy just being able to repeat certain things. Sometimes you're late game and you want to repeat a Falling Star after a hold. and that's kind of nuts. Even being able to repeat a consuming curse from your not from your trash, but from your hand. Because if you have 2 consuming curse in your trash, or let's say like on average you'll have 1, right? So this does 3 damage baseline. You have like an Annie or Ravenborn Tome out there, so it's 4 damage baseline. So you're doing 4 and 4 for just 4. It's like a much better piercing light. So the Academy, like, I think it's fine for what this deck wants to do, but you could probably put in something else and experiment. Our sideboard is going to be 2 Treasure Hunter. I hate that I have to drag this instead of just right-clicking to fill it. 3 Kaisa. 1, 2, 3. Let's just run 1 of each just for fun. We've got a red Zed. I don't know why I said red. Zed. 1 red Zed. 2 Ferris. Again, these Ferris just come in for the non-purple matchups. And then we're actually running 2 Decree of Rage, because I think Decree of Rage is actually reasonable in a mono deck. And if you're against green, it's actually fine. Can't be countered, and so they can't defy it. They can punch over it, but you actually have a lot of spell amplification in this deck. And then things like Morgana allow you to repeat that damage, so I think that's pretty reasonable. Okay, so this is probably the first deck that you've seen that has Morgana in it, and Twisted Fate in it, and Annie in it. So let's talk about what this deck is trying to do. It's a control deck, right? You're not trying to win the board early. You're just trying to clear their stuff and survive until late game, when you can be playing Bewitching Spirits and making them discard their hand. You're trying to remove their stuff with your Falling Stars, Void Seekers, Consuming Curses, and just keep them off the battlefields for as long as you can. And then late game, you kind of get your engine going with Treasure Trove, Pack. You're kind of ramping up your runes, you're drawing cards, and then you're killing their stuff with the other units and abilities you have on the board. Up from the Deep is an essential card in this deck, because what it's doing is it's giving you units to play. It's essentially like a much worse Vanguard Armory for those like late game control Victor decks and Lux lists, where they essentially just need dudes to conquer late game. Up from the Deep is doing that for you in this list. It's also good for just snagging early points, but I think it's much better late game when you've like removed all their things, they're top decking, and you're just kind of conquering over and over with your One Might Tentacles. So that's the role that Up from the Deep fits in this list. There is not a lot of banishment in this list. In the other ones, in the other lists, there's more banishment. You only have 4 banish cards in this list, so you're really not using your legend ever. I'm sorry, but that's just kind of how this is going to go. And yes, this list would be much better in Annie. It's probably even better in Draven. It's just better in other red purples, but I think, you know, if you're trying to do something fun and you want to play Zed, which is what I want to do, you can play this, and I think it's perfectly workable. 3-stack deck, of course. The Detonate Trove combo. The reason that I have this ratio of 3-pack, 2 Trove, 2 Detonate, is because the Pack of Wonders, the way I mathematically worked it out, is that Pack of Wonders has synergy with Bewitching Spirit and Trove in this list, right? Trove has synergy with Pack of Wonders and Detonate, but not with Bewitching Spirit. And so if you're going to be, so if you look at like a grid or kind of or visualizing the lines going from each one, Pack of Wonders, 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, or 2 cards that have synergy. Trove, 2 cards that have synergy. Pack, 1, 2 cards that have synergy, but you want to be on 3 Bewitching Spirit all the time. Like you're definitely having 3 Bewitching Spirit. And then Pack is also kind of good if you, I don't know, if you want to return a Morgana to hand sometimes, or if you want to save your TF from a battlefield and he like went out there and you know he's going to die next turn, you can Pack and save your units. So Pack has more like wide applicability for what this deck is trying to accomplish. And that's why we're on 3 there. 3 Trove would kind of get clunky if you had 2 in hand and no Pack. I wouldn't really like to see that. And then the Detonate is good. Sometimes you even like detonate a seal just to draw 2. And I think that's fine sometimes if you're like really hurting for cards. Or detonating the Trove is obviously the best thing you can do, because it's essentially just drawing 3 for 3. That's your draw engine. Trove and Pack has the synergy. We talked about that. What else is there in this deck? Consuming Curse, of course, just gets stronger over time. It's a really good card just to like play out and then have in your discard pile, so that over time it just gets better and better. It would be better if I had like discard synergy, but there's no real discard synergy in this deck. Annie is interesting. It's very expensive, but once you get an Annie established, if it doesn't die, it actually has an incredibly high like amount of value for you, especially with Ravenborn Tome as well. We're only running 1 of these because seeing 2 of these in a game is just a terrible feeling. So only 1. If you hit it, it's great. If you don't, it's whatever. But having Annie be a unit and then also spells and abilities deal 1 bonus. Tome is only spells. So Annie amplifies your spells and abilities, which is why we're having Akali, Twisted Fate, and Morgana in here. Morgana's ability, if read as written, like according to the rules, I believe Morgana would do +1 damage on whatever damage she's dealing. So if you have Annie on board and you Morgana ambush to a battlefield, like say you move a Tentacle in, you Hextech Ray, and then you Morgana, I think Morgana would do 4 damage, and Hextech Ray is only doing 3, but that's 7 damage to a unit, 9 if you're on Void Gate, right? Like Void Gate amplifies your spells and abilities as well, so that's pretty crazy. Like Morgana actually kind of fits into a deck that has like a lot of these damaging spells in it. The reason we're only on 1 Void Seeker is because green exists. You could make an argument that you'd have another one in the sideboard, and then if you're not against green and Defy isn't something you have to be concerned about, you run another one. I think that's reasonable. But this is like one of the worst cards to get defied because you paid the full 3 in a power cost. They maximized their defy value against you. They saved their guy, prevented you from drawing, and wasted your resources. It just feels really terrible. So we're only on 1 Void Seeker. And then you could maybe put 1 in if you wanted to, if you're not against a green deck. And then we have 2 Akali. 2 Akali was like the last addition that I made here. I think I had something else for a little bit, and then I decided to do this instead. It might have been the Treasure Hunters. And I think that Akali provides a lot of value in this deck because of the amplified spell and ability damage in game 1 on Void Gate. It does a lot more damage. Like you're doing 1, if you empower her, you're dealing 2, and then Void Gate is letting you do 3. It's pretty good. Dealing 3 damage to a unit is kind of nuts, and then it's a 4-might unit as well. So a lot of the time you move in, you Akali, you deal 3 to them, then you Hextech Ray for 4. You're killing something that's 7-might or more. You only have to do 1 more damage to get to the breakpoint of Rangars, like Rengar and Master Yi. Which is a hard breakpoint to reach for any deck, but I think Akali is like actually decent in the game plan of this damaging spell and ability damage deck. Heisho to stop your deflect costs. Heisho, interestingly, if you Falling Star something that's on Heisho and something that's in their base, you don't have to pay deflect for the base unit or the Heisho unit. Like it ignores deflect, the whole spell ignores deflect. So just keep that in mind. It actually is a huge buff for Cathian Rain as well if Kaisas are playing this, because you can hit 1 thing on the Heisho. It could be even your own friendly unit, and then you can ignore deflect everywhere else. So pretty insane, that interaction. And it's also really good for Twisted Fate, protecting Twisted Fate from like crazy deflect costs. And then the Academy we talked about as being just like, you know, could switch that out for something else probably. Maybe you take out a seal because you are mono purple, so like you're always going to be able to pay for your power costs. If you want to take out a seal, you could put in another Treasure Hunter, another Void Seeker. You could put in a Kaisa on the main board. I think that's reasonable. I don't know. I haven't experimented with this list as much, so I hope that some of you guys can go out and play this and let me know what you think. Hope it's a lot of fun to play. It seemed like, to me, it's kind of been fun to test with in the limited testing I've done, but I haven't played against a lot of, you know, the meta decks, so I'd be interested to see actually how it holds up against certain things. It is probably just a worse version of you know, Pike, Annie, Draven, probably better than Jinx, but better. It's probably worse mono red than if you just played this list in those colors. But if you're trying to play Zed and you're trying to rep the Master of Shadows and you want something different from what everyone else is doing, this would be a fun list to try out. That's all from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to try to do this series for a number of other legends as well. So I need you, like specifically you, wait, there's the camera. I need you to go to the comments and tell me what deck you want to see next on this series, whether it be, I don't know, Vex or Fiora. If you want to see me like do an updated Fiora list for Vendetta and kind of different archetypes for that. If you want to see Master Yi, Aurelia, whatever it may be, I'm totally fine with doing some of the more obscure legends as well. If you want to see 3 different Garen lists, I will build them for a video. Like whatever you guys want to see, let me know in the comments, and then whatever gets the most attention in the comments, I will make that going forward for my other videos in this series. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care and peace.